Hello, investors, and welcome to another edition of 18 Minutes with 180 Markets. Well, friends, we know markets right now are tough, and especially here in Australia, where we are coming to the end of the financial year, circa June 30th, and that is triggering a lot of tax selling. But for those investors willing to do a little bit of work, it also represents humongous opportunities because we have the opportunity and a time right now where we can invest into companies that we like on the cheap. And that's why I'm thrilled today to be joined by Sunstone Metals, a gold and copper explorer in South America, and its managing director, Patrick Duffy, because Patrick is going to talk to us about Sunstone, about its huge potential, and also what's on store for the next year. And with that introduction, Patrick, welcome.
Hi, Greg. Thanks very much for having me on today.
Hey, Patrick, one of the big attractions to Sunstone is the management team. Can you just talk to us a little bit about it?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. So maybe first just to introduce myself, I joined Sunstone in April this year, 2.5 months ago now. And uh, prior to Sunstone, I worked for Red 5, which was a WA gold producer. I joined Red 5 when it was a $60 million market cap back in 2019. And today, on the back of the success of King of the Hills, it's gone to $1.6 billion, and most recently just merged with Silver Lake to become a $3 billion company. So I have experienced the successes at Red 5. I see the full potential at Sunstone to follow a similar pathway given the quality of the two assets that we have, and very excited to be joining the team. A key reason I did join was I know Malcolm Norris, who was my predecessor, and who's still an executive director of exploration at Sunstone. But Malcolm has had an amazing career with some world-class discoveries, along with Bruce Rawlack as a team. Tujuh Bukit, which is a huge gold copper porphyry in Indonesia. SolGold's Cascabel was one of Malcolm's discoveries. And our two projects at Sunstone, again, just validate the skill and expertise that Malcolm has.
And Patrick, as you said, world-class size, you're in Ecuador, maybe starting out with the Bombardero project. Can you just talk to us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so Bramaderos is in southern Ecuador. It's a major porphyry system, world-class system, close to the border of Peru, in the same corridor of some of the great copper mines in Chile and in Peru. We're very confident that it will grow. It has an exploration target of over 10 million ounces, which is
10
astounding.
million.
Yeah, exactly. It's astounding. That includes a 2.7 million ounce resource at Brahma Elba, which is the first resource amongst the number of porphyry systems that we have at Bramaderos. But interestingly, we have a strategy to develop a smaller scale opportunity at Bramaderos to get us into production to develop the bigger systems there. It's called Limon, and we're now drilling at Limon and working towards a resource at Limon next year. But what makes it special is it's potentially an open pit. It's close to surface, high grade. I can see it just with the work that's being done in the background to be a 100 to 150,000 ounce per annum silver gold mine once we get through the stages of development. But I compare that to the likes of Red 5 or Capricorn or Emerald companies investors would know on the ASX. Similar production levels of Limon, and they're $1.5–2 billion companies. And that's just a stepping stone to the development of these world-class porphyries that we have at Bramaderos.
Well, so you're saying that even with what you have already on the smaller scale, it's already has potential for 100,000 circa ounces per year of production?
Yeah, exactly. Just at that smaller epithermal deposit, which is a um, different type of ore body to a porphyry. It's all interlinked, but we see it as something that we can build for relatively low capital and get it into production. Similar capital that was spent at King of the Hills and at Capricorn and the Emerald. Nice size for a junior miner to then be able to fund the much bigger porphyry mining infrastructure that will establish a multi-decade mining center at Bramaderos.
Right. And also, I want to get into a little bit of detail here for a second.
Yeah.
And at Red 5, obviously you know how to bring something, Patrick, into production. It's
Yeah.
not just about having a big resource and moving it on, so forth and so on. Is that a similar, the learnings that you have there, are you bringing them to Sunstone as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not just Red 5. I worked for Xstrata Copper and Xstrata
I
Nickel
saw it.
for many years, overseas in uh, Asia and Pacific markets. So I was involved in the construction of Koniambo, which was a $10 billion nickel smelter that we built finished in 2014. Involved in the Tampakan project in the Philippines, which is the fourth largest undeveloped copper deposit in the world, and able to take both lessons from those majors, but also the experience as a junior, uh, getting a new mine off the ground and into production, and taking those lessons to Ecuador to our two projects with Sunstone.
Right. And again, Patrick, I just want to emphasize to all our viewers that this is so important, is that there is so much more to making money and creating shareholder value than just having a big exploration target in itself. Not that that's a bad thing.
No, that's right. And also, it's important to have the technical experience to build these new mines, but also the capital market experience like I acquired at Red 5, putting the equity and debt in place and taking those lessons learned and applying that to Sunstone as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Patrick, maybe, and we'll jump back to the projects for a second,
Yeah.
but since as you said, you have experience in capital markets, the balance sheet right now in pretty good shape, post capital raise. Just talk to us about it.
Yeah, that's right. So we raised $4 million, which we put in place when I started just to give us some runway to put the building blocks in place and get back to drilling. So we're well funded now for this phase of drilling. And the drilling is focused on, we've got one rig drilling at Le Mans, and we'll continue drilling into next year as we establish that resource at Le Mans.
Okay. And so the drilling right now, as I said, we're end of June, early July of 2024. Can you just give us the schedule for the drilling and the size of the program?
Yeah, so that started in June, and we'll start to see drilling results being put out in the market in July and August, September. Initial design is for 1,500 meters of drilling, and we'll continue to grow that over time.
Got it. And a relatively modest program of 1,500 meters. Can you just tell us, in South America, is there any seasonality element, any issues with getting on the ground?
No, so we're lucky at Bramaderos. It only rains for 3 months of the year. Well, it rains intensely for 3 months of the year, but we're able to operate all year round. In the project in the north, it is more tropical, but we are able to operate year round. But no, the drilling program is designed to identify a number of target areas and validate those areas where we believe there are gold systems that's been identified from previous drilling and from the trenching that we've been doing the last 6 months. But the initial 1,500 meters will allow us to design the next phase after we've done those first holes.
Right. So obviously you're not going to get there and do nothing. Your boots on the
No.
ground, so to speak, and there's going to be a lot
Yeah,
of activity over the next circa 12 months.
yeah, absolutely. Huge activity.
Right.
Yeah.
Patrick, moving on to your other project, El Palmar. Can you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that is in northern Ecuador, on the same fault system that we see two other major world-class deposits. SolGold's Cascabel is about 60 kilometers away, and only 10 to 15 kilometers away is Codelco's Lurimagua deposit, which is 1 billion tons at about 0.9% copper. Both are excellent world-class deposits, and the same geological events that have contributed to the making of those deposits we see present at El Palmar. And that knowledge has come from Malcolm and Bruce, who have worked in this area, who were working at SolGold when they discovered Cascabel, and is why they picked up this particular concession at El Palmar. There's 5 copper gold porphyry targets there. We've done about 10 to 12,000 meters of drilling already at El Palmar, mostly on this T1 deposit, but some deeper holes. We've already identified what we believe is a nice first starter pit, open pit potential at El Palmar at T1. So similar to Le Mans, where we can get that into production before we have to spend more capital to develop potentially deeper systems that we know exist at El Palmar.
Right. And as you said, open pit for as far as grades, and maybe you can touch on this a little bit as well. In South America, 0.9%, certainly a high grade. I know that for Australians, they like to see grades 1.5% plus. But Patrick, maybe it's a good spot to talk to investors about how in South America, a lot of these lower grades are some of the biggest mines in the world.
No, exactly. So the best copper mines in the world, uh, the world-class copper mines we find in Chile and Peru, and seeing these deposits in Ecuador, all porphyries, multi-decade, company-making mines that you see at BHP and Rio and Anglo that underpin how these companies grow into being some of these world-class base metal producers. Again, we've got two porphyry projects at Bramaderos and El Palmar. El Palmar still shaping up. We're still getting our working through our technical understanding of the deposit, but we're confident that it's similarly going to be a multi-decade mine at El Palmar. But we have a starter mine that we think looks like 150 to 250,000 ounce type copper gold mine, gold copper mine that will allow us to fund the bigger development over many years at El Palmar.
Right. And Patrick, certainly it's exciting times. And to be clear, for El Palmar, this is the more, I would you call exploratory project of the two. But then circa when we back into your market cap, circa $50 million, it certainly appears that there's an embedded negative valuation, if you will.
Yeah, that's right. It is too early for us to put out an exploration target similar to what we have at Bramaderos. But again, we have an amazing team who's been very successful over a number of decades, and they see the same potential at El Palmar in terms of size and scope that we see at Bramaderos. And it will become a major mining centre, absolutely have no doubt. One thing we haven't touched on is both locations are in great postcodes. Neither have any red flags in terms of community or environmental concerns. Both have very supportive communities. Neither have protected forests or native forests in the areas. There's low level of agriculture, so we're not disrupting agriculture, and we've got communities that are very supportive to see Sunstone succeed in the area.
Right. And Patrick, and adding to that also, maybe talk about, as you mentioned a little bit, but Malcolm has extensive experience in this part of the world. So it is certainly not lost on Malcolm.
Yeah, no, Malcolm's been, I think, operating for at least 15 years in Ecuador. He knows everyone in the government. He knows everyone in the industry. As I said, we don't have any concerns about red flags in either project, which is partly to do with Malcolm's sort of criteria of evaluating project potential to acquire. And Bramaderos, particularly down southern Ecuador, very remote, has access to excellent infrastructure, and El Palmar as well. Both projects, I'm very confident will eventually see into production and become major mining centres in their own right.
Great. Hey, Patrick, in conclusion, the share prices, as we've noted on numerous companies, are down.
Yeah.
Why should investors, though, invest into Sunstone with a 12 to 24-month type of horizon right now?
Yeah, look, one, I think Sunstone, along with other companies, but has really suffered in June with tax losses selling into the market. The share price has fallen back with a number of small caps, which makes it obviously easy to take those tax losses. Come 1st of July, I think there's easy winners to be had at Sunstone. We're starting to put out drilling results in July. We continue to put the building blocks in place in terms of board and management team. Everything is coming together to get a resource next year at Limon, which becomes a stepping stone to a much bigger multi-decade operation at Bramaderos. And again, as I said, we have a similar story and strategy at El Palmar that will evolve over time.
Great. Well, certainly, Patrick, we look forward to the future and we'll very much be in touch with you.
Thanks very much, Greg. Great to speak to you.
Bye-bye.